At the end of last year, prominent tech reviewer Marques Brownlee tested an electric vehicle manufactured in China. He noted that this specific $42,000 car offered a level of quality and technology that would likely cost $75,000 if it were produced in the United States. That car represents the middle of the market. The BYD Seagull, another highly reviewed Chinese EV, sells for roughly $10,000, showcasing the current scale of foreign manufacturing efficiency. Despite the low prices, these vehicles are currently blocked from the American market. The U.S. government has walled them off using a 100% import tariff, a ban on their connected vehicle software, and exclusions from federal tax credits. This specific wall against foreign cars marks the beginning of a broader, systemic shift away from global free trade and towards strict economic isolationism. For 7 decades, U.S. policy favored a free trade system that prioritized access to cheap global goods. That strategy is currently being replaced by an aggressive move toward protectionism. Protectionism uses a red price markup, or tariff, to make foreign goods more expensive, steering citizens toward domestic products. This shift is visible in our trade data. Average U.S. tariff rates recently climbed from 2.4% to 9.6%, a level not seen in 80 years. While these policies are intended to penalize foreign competitors, they mechanically function as a hidden, compounding tax on the American consumer. The automotive industry is the first sector to feel this compounding effect. To understand why, you have to see how global supply chains actually function. Even cars assembled in the United States are rarely comprised of 100% domestic parts. Companies like Tesla still rely on a network of international suppliers for raw materials and components. When the government applies tariffs to imported steel, aluminum, and small parts, it forces domestic manufacturers to pay more for their own supplies. To stay profitable, those manufacturers raise the final price of the vehicle. J.P. Morgan estimates tariffs will cost the auto industry $41 billion in year one. For the buyer on the lot, that translates to a $3,258 average increase per vehicle. By attempting to shield domestic manufacturers through raw material taxes, the policy ends up penalizing the American driver, who has to buy the finished product. We're seeing a similar squeeze in electronics. Prices for laptops and consoles are projected to rise between 15% and 40% as trade barriers compound with existing market pressures. The baseline problem is a global chip shortage. As this visualization of a server farm suggests, the massive demand for AI data centers is currently monopolizing the global supply of memory chips. Chip makers are responding by shifting production away from consumer devices and toward high-profit AI chips. At the same time, the U.S. has placed new tariffs on semiconductors sourced from Chinese suppliers. This combination of a physical supply shortage and new trade barriers creates a price squeeze that leaves the average buyer with fewer affordable options. While more expensive tech is a frustration, the trade snowball is now reaching the U.S. pharmaceutical supply chain. The vulnerability here is significant. Currently, more than 70% of the active ingredients used in U.S. drug manufacturing are sourced directly from China and India. A recent executive order has imposed 100% tariffs on patented pharmaceutical imports. While generic drugs are currently exempt, that status is only temporary. The administration plans to reassess those exemptions next year. If they are removed, the cost of common antibiotics, cancer treatments, and blood pressure medications could rise dramatically. The protectionist snowball moves from luxury electric cars to tech, and finally to medical necessities, leaving the consumer to pay the bill at every step. For the average American household, these trade policies are projected to add between $600 and $1,500 in extra annual costs. Walling off the U.S. market does not stop global trade. It simply encourages other nations to trade without us. This is already happening. The European Union recently signed a free trade deal with India, and Canada struck a deal with China for the very electric vehicles the U.S. has blocked. This strategy echoes the 1930s Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. When the U.S. raised these back then, other nations immediately retaliated, causing global trade to collapse by 66% and deepening the Great Depression. Between exclusion from modern trade deals and retaliatory cycles seen in the 1930s, these barriers often leave a domestic economy more isolated than protected. Since you are now navigating an inflationary, high-tariff environment, there are a few practical ways to protect your finances. First, if you are planning to buy a major electronic device, do it soon. Prices are projected to rise in the second half of the year as the supply chain squeeze intensifies. Second, talk to your doctor about generic versions of any branded medications you take. This allows you to utilize current tariff exemptions before they are potentially reassessed next year. Ultimately, the most reliable defense against this hidden national tax is to reduce impulse consumption and focus only on essential, high-quality purchases.